Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 37. Thank you for tuning in to the Rock is George podcast. You can check out past episodes at anchor.fm/rockisgeorge. You can pick your favorite streaming platform from there, or you can head over to our YouTube page or rockisgeorge.com. I have a returning guest for episode 37 of the podcast. His name is Steve Overland. I last interviewed him for episode 23. Back then, he was promoting his groundbreaker project. Currently, his main band, FM, has an album set to be released on March 18th, 2022. It's appropriately titled 13 because it's the band's 13th studio album. For me, I first discovered FM with the release of their 8th studio album, Robert Johnson's Tombstone, and I went back and checked out their back catalog and was surprised at how great it was, how great the songs were, how powerful the choruses were, how really engaging the music was. It was kind of a band that I missed back in the 80s and early 90s. Although going back, I did kind of remember a few songs that I heard on American radio. But for the most part, I missed it. And that's the great part about the internet and streaming. You can discover all these great bands that were similar to the music that you enjoyed growing up or that you enjoy now. And you have pretty much access to everything. I mean, obviously, there's a negative side of that for the artist. But for music lovers, that's probably the best thing of having access to almost every song through streaming or YouTube or the internet. So back to FM. Their new album 13 is fantastic. I had the chance to listen to it before its release. Great songs from beginning to end, and Steve and I are going to discuss a few of them. So without any further delay, here's frontman and vocalist Steve Overland of the mighty FM. So the last time I talked to you, we were talking about Groundbreaker, but now you have a new album out with your main band FM. So I'll ask you the question I ask everybody out the gate. If I knew absolutely nothing about FM, how would you describe the music to me?
Well, I think FM are, they've changed over the years, but I think they are a hard rock, melodic song band. I guess it's all about the songs with FM. Big choruses, the usual things you would expect, really, with that kind of band. I mean, the great thing with FM, George, is you've also got a lot of blues influences coming into it because of where we come from. I mean, my favorite bands are Bad Company, Free, all that kind of stuff. Jim's into Rory Gallagher and things like that, and he's very much a blues player. So the great thing with FM, I think you get a lot of different elements coming into what we do. And hopefully that comes through with the diversity of the styles on the record. That's what we hope for. On this record, you've got Long Road Home, which is almost like an Eagles country style ballad, So, yeah, I mean, I would describe it as a song band. That's the best way to describe FM, really. If you like big songs with catchy choruses, then that's what FM are about.
I'd have to agree with that. And your new album is 13. It comes out on March 18th on Frontiers Music. It's appropriately titled 13 because it's the 13th studio album.
Yes, original, eh? Original.
So before we get into that, I wanted to ask, wasn't anybody afraid of superstitions as far as 13? It can mean good luck. It can mean bad luck.
Well, you're dead right. And yes is the answer to that question. But we just decided that we'd throw ourselves in there, and we think it's a great record. So it's been received fantastically well. So hopefully it's gone the other way for us so far. People have loved the record. But we were setting ourselves up a little bit, weren't we?
Well, I would say that so far it's lucky. You've only released a couple songs from the album. You sold a bunch of pre-order CDs that I saw you signing on Facebook. You're sold out of vinyl in the U.S. Frontier store. So the response is amazing.
No, it has been. It has been. Because it was recorded differently, this one, George. We obviously, because of the restrictions and COVID and all the stuff we've been through in the last 2 years, we couldn't get together in a studio for any length of time to actually record the record. So we've all got studios at home. So everybody probably had a lot more input in the writing on this record than they have done on previous FM records. Everybody had more time because we weren't able to tour. everybody was throwing songs around. We were sending bits to each other, and they got put together. And then eventually, when we could get together, we went through the 20 ideas, picked them, and went away and did our stuff on them, because we still couldn't have us all in the studio together. And I think the album's a great record, recorded differently to how we normally record. And it's come out great. When it was all put together and we could get together in a studio, it really did come together. It was great.
And it is a great album. I have to agree with it. I was able to hear the whole thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of the singles, a couple of the deeper tracks, if you don't mind. Let's talk a little bit about Waiting on Love and kind of the story behind that one.
Well, that was a song. That was the first song written for the album. Me and Jim, Jim lives down the road from me. I live in the middle of the English countryside, and he lives about 7 miles away from me, the guitar player. He had a chorus to a song, and he said, we need to get working on the next album, because we're just sitting around there. We can't tour synchronized at the moment, the previous record. So he said, I've got this chorus I've had kicking around for a while. So he sent it to me, and I messed around with the verses and sent it back. And then we got released for 6 weeks in the UK. We could actually go around and see 2 people. So he was one of the people I went to see. I went round there and I said, look, I've written this song. So Waiting on Love was the first track for the new album, the 13. It was written. And I think it set a benchmark. We thought, do you know what? Every time we do an album, people said it'd be great if you did another kind of more melodic commercial record, because a lot of the stuff's got a bit heavier on the previous records. So the first few songs written for 13 were in that kind of Waiting on Love genre, because I think it set a benchmark. So it was the first track written, and it got the ball rolling, really, George. It started it all off. It came out great. The rest of the band loved it. And so that kind of set a benchmark for where we were going to go with the album.
Absolutely. And commercial isn't necessarily bad. I mean, I like more of the polished commercial sounding stuff. It's more accessible to more people. And I agree. Yeah. Certainly with the second single you released, Turn This Car Around, a little more commercial polished sound. I like that song.
Yeah, well, that one actually came, which was great, came from the drummer, Pete. We went to Jem, the keyboard player's studio, when a few of us could get together again. This is what it's been like, dribs and drabs of people meeting up. And he said, I've got this song, he said, called Turn This Car Around. And he played it to me. Well, he played the demo, he'd done a demo, and I said, it's great. He said, it's a really great song, you know. So I sat down with him, and the thing is, Pete's voice is really low. So he sang me the melody he'd got. It was like, he's singing it like this. I'm like going, that's not going to work, that. You know, I'm going to have to just take it up another octave and do it differently. And we kind of worked together on the song, and he'd done the majority of the tune, to be honest. And then the rest of the boys came in and put their mark on it, like FM do, and it became an FM song. That's been the great thing about the way we've recorded this record, is that I feel it's important, because I normally come up with a lot of the initial ideas for songs on an FM record. So it's taken the pressure off of me a bit, George, really. It's with everybody else. Jem, the keyboard player, wrote about 15 songs in lockdown for the record. And he's only ever written one before that I've heard. And he just said, I've got all these songs to, and we listened to them, and they were all great. I mean, there's still, you know, like The Long Road Home. He had the music for it, and he said, go away and do a lyric to it and a melody that you think will work on it. And he had numerous tracks like that. He came up with a lot of the initial ideas for things like Love and War was one of his, and, you know, Shaking the Tree and things like that were all his initial songs. And it's been refreshing for me, George, to have, it's nice to get things coming from other people, because, you know, if I'm writing everything from scratch, it's kind of like, I know how it goes. So it's a nice surprise when you get stuff in that other people have put forward, you know. It's really great.
Do you have a third song that you're going to be releasing when the album comes out on Friday?
Yeah, we've done a great green screen video for The Long Road Home, because I think it's a really strong ballad, and that'll be the third one that comes out. I don't know when it's coming out, but it'll be pretty soon, I would think.
Is that song like the musician being out on the road, missing his family and stuff like that? That's kind of what I took from it.
No, absolutely, you're right. Do you know what it was that what instigated me to write that song? I know, I can't name him, but there's somebody I know that's a very, very famous rock star, right? A very famous musician. And I know a few, but especially a guy. And he said to me, he said, "Do you know," he said, "being on the road so frigging lonely." He said, "I love it." He said, "but all that time of when you're on your own and you're traveling and you're in the hotel room, and it is, you know, people think it's like you're partying, you're drinking, you're doing this all the time, but you have an awful lot of time when you're in your own place and you're on your own, whether it be sitting on a bus traveling across continent, whatever you're doing." And he said, you know, it's quite a lonely place. He said, "It's amazing how you can be famous and you can be so lonely at times," which is where the line, "How can you be lonely when the whole world knows your name," came from. And that kind of, that, what he said stemmed that song to me. And it was about when you've done a tour, it's weird when you come home for a while. It's weird. And it's about looking forward to coming off of a tour, but loving doing it. It's a funny thing. It's like this kind of rub, you know? And it's a weird thing. So that's where that song came from. That's what the lyric was about.
I have a friend that's in the Coast Guard, and he kind of has an experience like that because he's out on the ship for so long, and he comes back, and he you know, he misses being back, and then kind of when he gets back, he's like, "I don't really know these people from the last time I was here."
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it's strange. It's strange because you come back and then you start tapping your fingers. You can't watch TV. You're walking around all the time, which doesn't really, your family get well sort of fed up with you after a while. So you're like, and it's just that thing of, but when you've been on the road for like a month, you look forward to coming home. And when you get here, you're a bit like, all right, you know, because that's all we've ever done. I mean, we've done it apart from the 2 years where we couldn't. And, you know, I've not toured in a year for 30, 40 years. I've always been on the road, and it's part of this job. And it's what you know. So when, you know, that, you know, I loved it. For the first month of being in lockdown, I thought, wow, this is great. I'm in my house. The sun was shining in England, which is very unusual. We had a heat wave, and I loved it. But then after a month, I was a bit like, right, I've got to, I can't just sit back until this just goes away. I've got to start doing something. So I started making music again and talking to people and saying, look, if anybody wants any sessions doing, I'm around, and which I'm not normally around. I'm normally out on the road. So it was great. It was good to get back into it. And but that's what the song's about. It's about that thing where it can be a lonely place when you're touring, you know, if you're on the road for a long time. So, but it's fantastic. You know, when you're on the stage, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You know,
Speaking of the road, you guys have dipped your toes back into the road in the fall and winter, and you're ramping up for a 2022-2023 jaunt. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like getting back out on the road after not being on the road?
it was an odd one. We kind of well, it was a year. It was over a year since we'd done a show. So we got into the rehearsal room and decided we'd pick an easy set for the little tour we were doing, because we had to find our feet again and get back into it. And we started playing some songs, and it'd be like certain things, I'd be like, I can't remember this at all. And when you got to that point, it's just there. And I wondered, I mean, it was really strange. We headlined a festival, was the first show we did in Derbyshire in the UK, and it was about 3,500 people. And I remember being at the side of the stage, and Lloyd, our guitar and tech and stage manager, said to me, he said, are you not nervous? Do you not know what, you know, can you remember what you used to do when you used to go out on stage? And I'm like, I haven't really thought about it, mate. And we all got on the stage, and everything is pretty much automatic, because you've done so many tours and you know each other so well. And the show went great, and we did about 6 shows at the end of the year, as you said, George. And we just wondered a bit about attendances, to be honest, ticket sales, because let's face it, COVID was still around. They were still doing these things where they locked us down for a month just to try and calm the numbers down. So we were a bit like, we'll dip our toe in the water and just see how it goes. We did 2 shows in France that were great, and the 6 shows in the UK were fantastic. People want to go out, and people do actually want to get life back to normal and go and enjoy themselves and escape, and, you know, get back to how things used to be, I think, if it can be that way ever. But it's great. We loved it. So this couple of months that's coming up and the start and the end of this month is really exciting. It's going to be really exciting.
And you're going to kick off the tour at the end of the month with the melodic rock band Grand Slam. Have you talked to these guys and toured with these guys before?
Yeah, they did the gates in France with us. Jem actually played on the record, our keyboard player, and he knows Lawrence really well. Jem was in UFO before he joined FM. And Lawrence was in UFO, as you know, and Lawrence is a great guy. They're all great guys. And I know Mike, the singer, and we know the band. And they're a great band, you know, and it's a great bill. And when we played together in France, it works great. And they're now coming back, so it's great for them to get out and do some shows with us. And no, really looking forward to it. You know, we always try and take. Well, I mean, Grand Slam are a headline band in their own right, really. But it's nice to have that kind of thing where you don't just say, oh, just pick up a local support. We like to take a proper band out with us when we go out, you know, and if we can find an up and coming new band, that's great, or a band that's basically now coming back, and Grand Slam are now starting to find their feet and going out and doing shows again. So, you know, because we know them, it's great. And, you know, we hope the tour helps them to get back to where they were, and it'd be great.
At the end of May, you're switching it up and you're going out with Gun. Obviously, you guys must know Gun. They've been around maybe as long as you guys.
Yeah. Well, we toured with Gun. The last tour we did before COVID was us, Gun, and Dan Reed Network. And we know all of those guys. I mean, we grew up together. If you think about it, Thunder, FM, Gun, Dan Reed, all of those bands were all on the same circuit, and we see each other at festivals all the time. And we're friends. It was great when we did the Dan Reed and Gun tour. You know, you got three bands that go out and play fairly big size venues in their own right. We just all had a chat. We said, look, you headline that night. We'll headline that one. We'll go first on that night and do 30 minutes. And there were no egos or anything. All the bands are like been around for a long time. Everybody wanted it to be a real extravaganza and make the show work. So there were no egos. There's nothing like that at all, George. Everybody was a bit like, we're all friends. And so to go out with Gone again will be fantastic. Be great. They're great guys. Great guys.
And you get a couple diverse festivals coming up. You have the Northern Kin Fest, which has a lot of bands I don't really recognize. I mean, I noticed Bernie Marsden and Carl Palmer and Geordie, but that was about it. And then you got the All-Star Fest in November, which is actually pretty cool. You got the hair metal guys one night, you got the melodic rock guys in the middle, and you got the heavy metal guys at the end. Do you like these festivals versus sort of the headlining stuff that you do on your own, where you can, I guess with the festivals, you can reach more people, but I can imagine it's chaotic in a sense with so many bands and so many acts playing.
Yeah, I think with festivals, George, you've got to have the right attitude when you go into them. And we've been fortunate to play some huge ones like Download to like 90,000 people, and we've done all of them. And we did a massive tour of festivals we did the Kiss thing in Europe. We did the Kiss when Kiss went out last time. We had Kiss, Def Leppard, and Whitesnake on the bill with us, and we were so that's a fairly decent bill to be on. So you can imagine the numbers that were there. But you got to have the mindset with festivals, and we've done a lot of them over the years. So it's just you got to be prepared to just go out there and give it 100%. If the sound's shit, you've got to put up with it, because you may not get a sound check. So you got to have the right frame of mind that, you know, we're going to play to 50,000 people, or we're going to play to 5,000 people, whatever. But you just got to go out there and give it your best. It isn't your show. You've got to go out there and just do a good gig, you know, and overcome the problems that you may have. Because bear in mind, they've just wheeled the band off before you. More often than not, there'll be a couple of little things may go wrong, but you just got to soldier on and get on with it, you know. And I love them for that reason, because you're flying by the seat of your pants. You have no idea what's going to happen. With your own shows, you've arrived in the afternoon, you've had something to eat, you've done a sound check, you've sat around, you're in control of it. So doing that thing where you have to be spontaneous. It's all spontaneous, and doing that thing, you're on the edge of your nerves all the time with it, because you don't know what's going to happen. I love both things. I love all gigs, and they all have to be approached in a different way, you know.
Is there any chance that FM would tour the United States in the next couple of years? I know it's kind of tough because we don't really have the market for that style of music, but there's a couple festivals where that would fit in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we had a tour planned that I can't go too much into before COVID, because we were going to do the cruise, the rock cruise, right? So basically, we were going to tag on a string of dates, club dates at the end of that. It's just that thing where, obviously, with what happened, we couldn't, So we've kind of now ended up putting it back. But yes, is the answer to your question. I mean, we love coming to the States. Before, as COVID kicked in, we were in Las Vegas and Los Angeles shooting videos. We just flew out to shoot some videos because we love coming to the States. So we were lucky enough to fly out and be able to do that. And we were there for a week and a half. And then COVID kicked in and then we had to come back. So, but we plan to come out definitely and play the States. I mean, obviously travel restrictions permitting always, because you never know what's going to happen, do you? But yeah, definitely we'll be out there playing, definitely.
One of your first tours when you signed to CBS Portrait was opening for Meat Loaf. Meat Loaf recently passed away. I don't know if you guys had a chance to chat with him on that particular tour or tour with him after that, and maybe had a story or two about that.
We were a brand new band, George. We hadn't even got a name. We had to come up with a name to do the tour. His management heard our demos and thought we were a great band. We hadn't even got a record deal. We hadn't really got enough songs to go out and support Meat Loaf in Europe. But these were arenas, and we just said, look, we're going to have to. We can't not do it. We've got to do it. We're only now starting out. We got offered this tour, so we came up with the name FM because it was the best one out of the bad bunch of names. We weren't necessarily going to keep it, and we went out and we did the Bad Attitude tour with him. We did about 7-8 shows. Absolute brilliant guy. And the band were great guys too. And they treated us really well. He thought it was great that we weren't really an established band and we were on his tour. He was a larger than life character, And he used to play table tennis in the venues. And I used to play the game of table tennis against him. And he's just a really warm, fantastic guy, and another legend lost, unfortunately.
I think his 80s albums don't get the due that they should because they're not Jim Steinman albums. Bad Attitude was actually a great album. Great album.
And some of the songs are off the scale. And his singing was brilliant on them, As you say, kind of the problem with him was, I think Bat Out of Hell just totally overshadowed anything else he ever did. He could never break away from that and say, yes, I know I did that, but listen to this. And unfortunately for him, it was just there, wasn't it? Always. As if you said Meat Loaf, oh, Bat Out of Hell, all the other great stuff he did just got pushed to one side, and it was a real shame.
That's all I got for you today, Steve. The new album by FM comes out March 18th. It's called 13. So far, it's been pretty lucky for you. I hope that the luck continues.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for talking to me, George. Nice to see you again.
Once again, I want to thank Steve Overland for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Might I add, for the second time, be sure to check out FM's latest album, 13. It's out streaming. Physical copies and albums can be purchased at fmofficial.com or the Frontiers Music Store in both the US and internationally. If you're going to stream the album 13 and you like it, head over to the artist's website and purchase a copy, or purchase a copy on Amazon or the Frontiers Music Store. Make sure you're supporting the artist. FM's out on tour now in the UK and Europe. Be sure to check him out if you can. Steve's got a lot of other hard rock projects and melodic rock projects. He has Overland, which is his solo project on Escape Music. He has Groundbreaker on Frontiers. He has a project with Simon Kirk from Bad Company called Lone Rider, which is also on Escape Music. Just type in Steve Overland and see all the great things that he's done musically. I want to thank Dustin Hardman of Hardman Promotions and Frontiers Music for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon, and quite possibly with Steve Overland again.